Legal Terminology Module. There are 7 lessons with their corresponding desired objectives to be achieved by participants within this module. At the end of these short lessons, participants should have gained a basic understanding of the meaning and usage of legal terms in common legal situations and functions. Of course, we have to have a disclaimer, right? All the information provided in these short lessons is publicly available and provides interpreters working in the legal field with an understanding of basic legalese and other commonly heard terms. This information is not intended to be construed as legal advice. Participants will also be provided resources to complete the individual assignments and are encouraged to use the same to enhance their personal glossaries by incorporating the legal terminology used in these lessons so they can interpret and/or translate them correctly into their working language. Lesson 4. Basic Weapons. The objective here is for participants to gain a basic understanding of commonly used English legal terms when referring to weapons and how to conduct effective research to interpret or translate them into the other working language. What is a weapon? Merriam-Webster defines a weapon as something such as a club, knife, or gun used to injure, defeat, or destroy, or a means of contending against another. In this short lesson, we are going to focus on the terms for weapons that interpreters would often hear in a legal setting. Generally speaking, when talking about weapons, it is not unusual that one of the first things that comes to mind is some kind of gun. Because as interpreters working in legal settings, the term will come up often, here is a brief introduction to some of the types of firearms used in the commission of a crime. Weapon types based on action refers to the mechanism that handles the ammunition or the method by which that mechanism works. These can be single action, an action requiring the manual cocking of the hammer, or double action, a mechanism in which a single pull of the trigger first cocks and then releases the hammer. Or instead, the weapon can be semi-automatic. Each pull of the trigger results in a complete firing cycle from discharge through reloading, or automatic, firearm design that continuously feeds cartridges, fires and ejects cartridge cases as long as the trigger is fully depressed and there are cartridges in the feed system. There are also handguns and long guns. Handguns are firearms designed to be held and fired with one hand. Long guns are firearms designed to be used while held with both hands and supported by the shoulder. A revolver is a firearm that has a cylinder with a number of chambers. These chambers are designed to be manually loaded with cartridges of the appropriate caliber, and then, as the cylinder rotates into position under the hammer, the trigger can be pulled, releasing the hammer and causing the cartridge to be fired. Pistols. Designed for a more automatic operation, cartridges are loaded into an ammunition magazine which is inserted into the firearm. As long as cartridges are present in the ammunition magazine and the firearm is functioning properly, the action of the firearm is responsible for the feeding and chambering of the cartridge and the extraction and ejection of the cartridge case once the cartridge is fired. They can be designed to fire fully automatically or semi-automatically. Semi-automatic operation requires a pull of the trigger to fire each cartridge. Fully automatic operation allows for multiple cartridges to be fired with a single trigger pull for as long as ammunition is available to be fired. Long guns also come in different types. A rifle is a relatively long-barreled firearm fired from the shoulder, having a series of spiral grooves cut inside the barrel, a process called rifling, imparting a rapid spin into a single projectile. Shotgun, pictured on this slide, is a shoulder-fired long gun with no rifling in the barrel, designed to shoot a large number of small projectiles, known as shot, rather than a single projectile. And a machine gun is a fully automatic firearm that will continue to load and fire ammunition until the trigger or other activating device is released, the ammunition is exhausted, or the firearm is jammed. Inside the barrel of a firearm, one can see the rifling, the spiral grooves cut or swagged inside a firearm's barrel that gives the bullet a spinning motion. The metal between the grooves is called a land. Inside a projectile, one finds the powder charge, the primer, and the bullet or shot, depending on the type of ammunition. The links for the weapons terminology listed here are also included in Handout 4. Individual activity. Conduct terminology research to identify the different parts of the weapons and terms for ammunition into your working language. Use Handout 4 Exercise 4A to complete this activity. Remember that almost any object can serve as a weapon. However, bladed weapons are another extensive category that frequently comes up in court. Thus, interpreters also need to know the terminology for bladed weapons in their working languages. Bladed weapons include a number of objects, such as knives and other similar weapons, which typically have a flat shape and a cutting edge and a point or tip. Blades can also be serrated. Examples of a bladed weapon include a sword, dagger, saber, rapier, stiletto, machete, spear, ice pick, among many others. Knives have a grip, also referred to as the handle of the knife, and a pommel, which is immediately behind the grip. The hilt includes both the grip and pommel of a knife. The cutting edge or the point or tip of a knife are what typically cut and cause harm and injury. Some knives have a double cutting edge. The choil is the end of a knife edge opposite the tip. The blade, which includes the cutting edge, is the sharpened side of a knife which does the cutting. The fuller is a groove on the side of a knife blade. Knives can have a blade that is fixed relative to the hilt, or the blade can fold into the handle of the knife. The tang is the part of a knife blade that extends back into and attaches to the hilt. The cross guard or guard is typically the part of many knives that separates the grip from the blade and prevents the user's hand from sliding forward onto the blade. The ricasso is the flat, squared-off part of a knife blade next to the cross guard. A sheath or scabbard is a covering for a knife's blade. Here are a few more parts of a knife: point, blood groove, guard, lanyard hole, and pommel. The terms found in a double-edged knife would be the grind, the spine, the ricasso, the tang, and the quillion. There are other knives sometimes used as weapons, so interpreters also need to know these terms. Jackknife, a folding blade pocket knife. Penknife, a very small folding pocket knife. A pocket knife, small enough to fit into one's pocket. A Swiss Army knife, a pocket knife with multiple blades and tools. A switchblade, A folding knife whose blade is spring-loaded and can be opened quickly by releasing a catch. Hunting knife, a large knife that does not have a folding blade. If we're talking about a kitchen knife, the parts would be the blade, the edge, the heel, the bolster, the handle, the tang, and a rivet. Kitchen knives and other utensils can also serve as weapons, so here are a few more terms interpreters need to know. Butcher knife, boning knife, bread knife, carving knife, chef's knife, cleaver, filleting knife, paring knife, steak knife, peeler, kitchen scissors. Interpreters might also encounter a case where a sword was used as the weapon. So here are the parts of a sword: pommel, grip, hilt, crossguard, fuller, edge, blade, point. The parts of a dagger might also come up during a case. These are the scabbard, ring, pommel nut, ball, blade, crossguard. There's usually a motto or an inscription on the blade. Handle. In the case of the dagger you will see coming up next, there's an eagle insignia, the maker's mark, and a roundel. Other dagger parts not shown are a rim and a ferrule. This is a bladed weapon with double-edged blade and knuckle duster handguard. The terms to remember are striking pommel, handle, crossguard, double-edged blade, ricasso, knuckle duster handguard. Here's a saber. This is a rapier. A stiletto pocket knife. A spear. An ice pick. And of course, as interpreters, we also have to consider that any type of sharp weapon will cause wounds, and these could be incised or cut wounds, stab penetrating wounds, transfixing wounds, and defense wounds. Here are some examples of the types of wounds from sharp instruments: a stab wound, a cut, a bruise, or a laceration. Individual activity. Conduct terminology research to identify the different parts of bladed weapons and terms for wounds into your working language. Use exercise activity 4B to write them down. In Lesson 4, the key points to remember are: weapons terminology is extensive and very detailed because of the variety of weapons that exist. Interpreters need to conduct extensive research to find the direct equivalents of the weapon terms into their working languages. And you can also conduct research For pronunciation purposes, if the terms are unfamiliar to you, you can do a search on Google and you can look for pronunciation of the term, and you will usually find it on YouTube. End of lesson 4.